thanks all for joining in. So this is like this is the 9th week, thanks for staying in the journey. So let's, I just, in the past weeks we covered a couple of key areas. One is, the Azure Basics, AKS, Application Gateway. We went deep into storage systems. And the storage, we looked at disks, blob storage, and optimized how does compute go with the optimized storage and things like that. So in the coming weeks, today we will focus on the second piece of the data. I call them a data estate because enterprises have multiple different types of data solutions, not one. So today we'll focus on a key area, a couple of key areas. One is Cosmos DB, which is widely used NoSQL data store. If you take things like Microsoft Teams, they use Cosmos DB as the primary store, as one of the primary stores to store information. And we also will talk about Synapse and Synapse Analytics. That's Synapse used to be called as a SQL data warehouse. So now Synapse Analytics is the additional feature set within that ecosystem. We will touch base on it. And then we briefly look into the Azure migration service. So that's the plan for today. So as usual, if you have any questions, let me know. We will share the slide decks and then go from it. In the future sessions, we are looking to cover a couple of key areas. The Azure Marketplace, IoT, and on the Data Estate 3 session, I would love to cover HC Insight and Azure Databricks, and also take a little bit deeper view on the data warehouse solutions. So today it's Synapse Analytics. We'll touch base, but it'll go deeper. And following weeks, I want to start AI, especially Azure Machine Learning Services, and also serverless compute, followed by DevOps. And we will end with all the governance modules. Okay, this is the planned session. If you think about what's going to be after this, I think I need to get approval from the council, our internal team, or desktopper management team as well. But I really want to touch base on what is after this. What are the things that we planning to present? Again, as I mentioned, this is preliminary things, but it might change a little bit. But these are the different plans we have depending on the time scale. I want to just look at it. So this session with all the things will run up to mid-August, and then we're looking into Kubernetes for beginners. I think there is one of the ask is having a Kubernetes session, which is we're going to get one of the best engineers that have worked on that are working with me on Kubernetes. And we also look at, depending on the time scale, we look at ANML and also DevOps, DevSecOps, and also I will come back on the 17th and talk about cloud architecture frameworks. So as Kader mentioned, we want you to be a creative person, creating new things and stuff like that. So all this technology learning is good, but how do you put them into a solutioning model? How do you get your ideas into some sort of solution, take the marketplace? So this is I'm planning to have some sort of a call architecture framework as well as data architecture framework. So this is like the rough schedule, but at least it might change a bit, but at least so we have a lot of good things for in terms of teaching you guys. So keep us, we'll keep you posted, but at least if we this is at least give you an idea of what's going to be in the future weeks.
And Krishna, if you go back, sorry, we should probably creating a Eventbrite for. So the first one is something that you are ongoing right now, right? Azure fundamentals, right?
Yeah.
So we will a separate program for Kubernetes, AI, cloud, and data. So we have to create like four Eventbrite stuff. Can I this date? Will you be able to keep up this date?
Yes. So basically, that's how I'm working the schedule with other trainers too.
Okay.
So the Kubernetes trainer is very keen. So I'm working with him on preparing the Kubernetes content. So that's solid 4 weeks of activities. similar time zones, right? So yeah, so we will be definitely be at least in line with the dates we have published here, so that we can we will be able to, the students able to come on this schedules.
So the other thought process here is this DevSecOps, right?
Yep.
So what we are going to do is just FYI, you will create something called as a Testoper workshop, or maybe we will put it as a Testoper masterclass, whatever, right? We need to decide the name. But inside that masterclass, we're going to focus on technology. When I say technology, I'm talking about like blockchain, cybersecurity, and those kind of things, right? So the one of the thought process that we have is to create a masterclass or a workshop, like two to four sessions, and then we will talk about a topic like, for example, cybersecurity for testers, right? Cybersecurity for operations, then cybersecurity for developers, cybersecurity for architects. Then we will say cybersecurity for 360-degree DevOps, that is DevSecOps, right? Complete end-to-end, right? So separate 111 and complete end-to-end. We need to probably create a master class around that, like that. This is what something that we have been discussing, so we will sync up on that to see how this could be synced up with that Kamlesh stuff. Okay.
Okay. Fair enough. So that's a good idea as well. So we definitely that's masterclass path is one of the things we can go.
Yeah, yeah. Because this one is an IA track, right? So IA is all about cloud and intelligent automation, AI, ML, that direction, right? Data science and so on.
Yep.
So once you end your cloud and data architecture, then we can get into the deep dive of AI.
Okay, right? Cool.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's go into the session today. Let's give me 1 minute. I'll run through this. I think last week we saw quite a bit of, I think the week before last we saw quite a bit of things. So let me go to the section that we will talk today is about the part 2 of the data estate. Just give me a minute. I'll jump to the slide. Okay. So the reason I am splitting this into multiple sections is basically the range of solutions that we have on Azure in terms of data services is extremely, I would say, very varied. Depending on the type of workload that you are dealing with, you have a solution that will go with it. So, so there are a couple of key things I want as a team to understand. When you build traditional data services, like a databases, like a NoSQL type, like or relational or graph, multiple different types of databases are available in the marketplace. So when you build those things in, there are a couple of key things you would end up doing is most of these deployments are its own siloed model, right? So you deploy MongoDB and then you deploy SQL Server and then you deploy, in Oracles of the world. So what happens? These ones are independently operatable. So, but where my cloud, especially Microsoft, makes a major role is what we've done is we've taken the compute and storage as well as the additional capabilities within the building, enabling the data centers, so connecting all the data centers. So all of a sudden, what's happening is all of a sudden the databases that you run on the cloud also becomes highly scalable, not by virtue of the core technology with the data solution, but the virtue of the data centers itself. So when we connect our data centers, Canada Central, Canada East, or availability zones, there is an existing fabric connecting all those compute and storage. And when you build on top of that, a lot of features are basically that are built in the core platform bubbles up. For example, you can deploy a Cosmos DB when you want to go a DR region, you basically tick mark it. You don't deploy anything. So when basically configure it. So installation becomes configuration. So configurations are much easier managed than an installation. So the key takeaway I want you guys to all to take away is the components that are database components on Azure are all built on the same framework. So when I talk about same framework, it also includes security, compliance, audit. The whole lot of things goes into it. On top of that, our offerings can also keep adding. We keep adding new offerings because our core infrastructure is pretty much the same. we keep adding new components to the existing infrastructure, which means new services can be enabled without huge investment from the customer side. So, for example, from if you're deploying a new, let's say you're deploying a new service, and you want to invoke a new data service which Microsoft released, pretty much all you need to do is enable the news database service and connect with your existing deployment as well. So, from engineering, from the investment point of view, it makes things easy for you. So just want to recap what we spoken the last time. I think I keep mentioning one fact. We have a huge portfolio of operational data stores. If you take about the Azure SQL database, so you think about it, it's a scalable relational data store. It's always one key takeaway from you is it's always evergreen and always up to date with all the features and functionality. And also one other thing is it also gets all the hyperscale storage, because as I explained earlier, the storage by itself is baked in the platform itself. So because of the nature of that, your storage capabilities also increase substantially. So if you think about the managed instance, this is where managed instances are given or provided to services or products which require a dedicated instance. So why you need dedicated instance? For multiple reasons. Maybe you want your database to be residing in your own virtual network. When I say own virtual network, so it's on the Azure, where you deploy your network and then you deploy databases. That could be for compliance reasons, that could be for a number of reasons, right? So again, it's a managed service offering with you as a customer has got full control over the database, and how do you want to configure it? It's up to you. So, and we also start offering things like Postgres, MySQL, and MariaDB. These are for enterprise ready, fully managed open source databases. Which when I mention open source, basically these are available as open source product. We took the product, we made it enterprise ready, and with all the governance models, security models, backup architectures, DR facilities into the open source databases, and made it enterprise grade product. So, and what that gives you is you still get all the advantages of open source database. You get all the flavors of that. At the same time, you don't have to worry about the underlying infrastructure or underlying patches, updates, which is usually a huge cost element when it comes to running databases. And the last two pieces is basically Azure Cache for Redis and the Cosmos DB, which we will look at the Cosmos DBs today. So Redis is a very well-known key value pair type data store. It's basically, it also does a lot of in-memory processing. So the reason I want to mention, bring this thing is, depending on your application, you have a choice of database for you to run with it. I think one other thing also, previously we touched base very simply. I think on the left-hand side, I wanted to also, you might be having certain type of requirements where you still want to deploy, install a legacy, not legacy, I would say a traditional SQL server like infrastructure service. That option is also available based on your needs. In summary, you have fully PaaS managed data services, and also you also have installed databases like IIS installed database available for as a customer. So next one, I'm going to go into the Synapse piece, Synapse Analytics piece. If you're preparing for AZ900, most likely this won't be part of it. But the reason I'm bringing that is this is a very new offering which we have in the marketplace for about a year or so. As from education and learning perspective, it's good to know because the dynamics of analytics is rapidly changing. So that's the reason I really want to bring you this particular feature set for you guys. Okay. So if you take your traditional analytics platform, right? So there is always the choice is always there, right? So either you go with the data lake type story, or you go with the data warehouse side of things, right? So each one has got its own nuances. On the big data world, it's basically you tend to do a lot of experimentation, and it's usually used for a semi-structured data store. That's the concept of the data lake. It all originates from the Hadoop side of things. But if you look at data warehouse things, is basically think about an operational data store where you have relational type models where data are connected to each other, and it's also got its own privacy and security and policies. It's very similar to like a relational store. So what we are doing with the Synapse Analytics is we are bringing both of these worlds, the Azure Data Lake world plus the traditional data warehouse, and basically we're building, offering a single service for customers. Why you think it's important? Because the way that today, in this day and age, because you're working with multitude of data sources and data types and different business problems to solve, so the traditional way of analytics is not going to be able to scale to your needs. That's why that's why unification of the data lake plus the data warehouse is coming into a single frame, I would say. So before I go into deep into it, what workloads are suitable specifically towards the Synapse Analytics, right? Anything that you want to, obviously, it's for build for large volume of data. It's not a OLT, it's not a OLTP type store. We'll just be very specific. And you want to consolidate all your data from different sources into a single location. And you also want to use a very simple SQL-like construct. So why that is important is basically most of the data professionals have an idea how to work with SQL. So we wanted to make sure the same constructs are available on the solution as well, right? And also the solution, Synapse Analytics has got a solution for features for ability to consume batch mode as well as micro batch mode as well. And obviously its ability to perform a large query analysis on a huge volume of data sets. So that the reason I want to bring that particular topic is running queries across multiple clusters or huge volume of data sets. It's a challenging, it's on its own. Microsoft has been perfecting this query models or distributed query model for a number of years. So we took all the best. For example, if you're querying, let's say, 1 billion rows, you don't want to be waiting for days to get the result. You want to wait only a couple of few seconds, right? So that's the whole notion of this particular product is able to for customers to build queries at rapid scale, and also you get the result set in a much shorter time frame within a couple of milliseconds versus hours together. So this is how your modern data warehouse would look. Nothing fancy here. You have on-premises data. You have data that is born on the cloud, and you also have SaaS type solutions like Dynamics, Salesforce, Workday. You name it. There is some Freshdesk or like Zoho. You name it. There is some sort of a SaaS solution. This is where your data is getting generated. So what you end up doing is you basically take all the data into your storage using Azure Data Factory or some sort, which basically you will compile them into some sort of meaningful data sets by preparing the data, and then you transform it by injecting or by the relevant reference data. In the end, you end up serving the data serving layer would be something like a data warehouse, and visualization could be Power BI or Tableau or Grafana. It doesn't matter what it is. So this is your modern data warehouse. Where Synapse Analytics would come into play is we flatten out the entire middle layer of different stages, that ingest, processing, and also all the preparation into a single layer. From your point of view, you have to identify the sources of data, and Synapse Data Analytics would give you a single frame of reference, which will basically combine all the things together. That's a massive advantage of it. I will talk to you why there's a massive advantage of that. If you think about Synapse Analytics, basically the platform is composed of multiple components. First and foremost component is integrated with the Azure Data Lake Store. So we spoke about ADLS Gen 2 and also the blob storage, the likes of it. So the first, the source is basically the single source of truth for the Synapse is our data lake store. And also not only that, One key advantage of is the metadata management is basically is extremely simplified. If you've been in the data side business, you'll know each type, each system has got its own sort of a metadata store. So what we do in Synapse Analytics is when the data get ingested, we have a single source of metadata, and then that data metadata is used across end-to-end processing versus you don't have to shift your metadata between different services. If you, for example, if you host something on a Spark engine, and then the Spark might have its own data store, and if you want to metadata store, and then you want to publish it into any other publishing tool, it might have its own metadata store. So which means you have to map them constantly. But with Synapse Analytics, we basically flatten it out, a single source of truth when it comes to metadata. And it also comes pre-built with data integration platforms. So when you talk about data integration, it could be, as previously explained, I showed you, right? That could be on-premises data, that could be SaaS type of data, or it could be within even Azure itself, it could be AWS, GCP, born on the cloud data. So it comes with pre-built integration platforms at a native service. And we also give you two types of runtimes. When you talk about runtime, it's the SQL engine, which is widely used. SQL Server is one of the engines that are used. And we also give you Spark as the basic service into it. So that gives you two very relevant engines for you to run any type of workloads on it. And also there are variations within the Spark side of things. We also give you ability to use Python, Scala, R, and .NET. So it doesn't matter what type of language you are using. The Spark engine is available for you to act on the data that you get. So there are two types of form factors. The first form factor is, you can pre-provision or provision the services, or you can do it on demand. Why that is important? So there are some processes in your enterprise which that's always going to be there. Your batch processing or regular intervals of data coming in, at frequent intervals, or some sort of monthly, depending on your schedule processing, right? So that in that scenario, you're not thinking about on demand side. Hey, I know this data that's going to come in at a certain time. I want to fix out I'm going to provision my infrastructure to the time frame. Okay, and that means on demand. So for example, you just don't know what some events might trigger a need to process exceptional volume of data. For example, all of a sudden you're running a website. Let's say you're running a shopping website, and you found somebody like there's a new product came, and all of a sudden the things would spike. So traditionally, what would happen is this on demand has always been challenging because you just don't know when to begin, when to stop. So this service has pre-baked capabilities to be able to launch itself on demand or provision. So that's a huge advantage for enterprises. Now, I think we spoke about language earlier a little bit. So we support SQL, Python, .NET, Java, Scala, and R. So we support the major languages that are used by developers as well as data scientists, the likes of data engineers are called. And we also made one key investment is making the whole develop productivity, or making a seamless ability for you to use different components and build the solution. We introduced Azure SQL Synapse Studio. Think about this is your development IDE where you can pull in the data, you can use your own APIs, you can do all the things without you exceeding out of the ecosystem. And on top of that, we also, it doesn't matter what type of workload it is. It will work with AI models, machine learning, IoT, business intelligence apps. So this also, it's not fixated to a certain types of verticalized area of work. Pretty much it's widely, it can be used as long as you have a data volume to deal with, or you have some interesting use cases, or non-interest, doesn't matter what it is. This is the entire equation, the solutions available to be used for any type of workloads as well. On the left-hand side, management is very key. When I say management, how the services get deployed, whether you're able to tag the resources. One of the key aspects I want to mention is costing is huge, right? So previously, what might happen is you might be, for example, if you take a Spark engine of some sort, the Spark engine has to be constantly be running non-stop, so that your cost is incurred on, even though if you're not processing it, the cost is incurred on it. That's not a really good use case for a number of customers. And other things could be, how do you manage, especially large enterprises? There'll be different business units that be dealing with data. One business unit would be just care about ingestion of data. Other business would be caring about public, all the messaging of data. In that scenario, how do you split the cost? This also this party, because the way Synapse is built, you can do a very excellent management of cost allocation significantly. Security is again key. I will touch base on the security in the next slides. Security, it's in two. I'll give you three instances. The security posture challenges with you have multiple small silos of workloads is the security will be broken into multiple pieces. When the security gets broken down, when you have data flow happening, what will happen is your security posture has to be tuned towards the particular service in question. For example, if you let's take a very simple role-based access control model of data, right? You would say, what, the Spark system, only three people can access it, and when the publishing happens on the Power BI or Tableau, you need to increase the number of people to access the reports, right? In this case, you have to build a model with the Synapse Analytics. You can build all the security model as a single frame of glass, which means irrespective of what you do, the security policies are applied across different types of sources as well as destinations. Monitoring is very key. If you noticed, you might be running a job, and then the job had failed, and without even knowing the job has failed, the other process is starting to look at, hey, looking at the finished job and expecting the database data to be available. And in that scenario, without a proper, then you have to build some sort of a distributed monitoring logs. With Synapse, it's basically a single frame of glass. Monitoring is baked into the core fabric itself, so which means based on monitoring data, you can do some interesting things. Metastore, I was explaining to you earlier, right? The major investment we made is having a single unified metastore for your workloads in end-to-end. That also makes your ability to scale as well as your ability to build applications much easier. So I think I also want to mention, I didn't mention this earlier. One key aspect of is that we call them as a connected service. So within Azure itself, pretty much every single database product as well as third-party integration, we have pre-built integration, right? If you want to go and pick up data from, I would say S3, or if you want to pick up data from SAP or Oracle, we have pre-built connectors baked into the platform. Why? One of the reasons when you do that, when you have pre-built connectors, security comes as part of it, and also these connectors are tested with the particular product in question, which means your time to market is significantly lower, and new things would constantly being built, right? So which means a new third-party company will be building certain services, and if it's very popular, all of a sudden the connector will be available for you to consume. So the whole, if you think about this Synapse Analytics, the ecosystem of connectors, and also it also makes it's flattening of all the complexity when you're coming to data warehouse. It gives a single unified solution for you as a customer, or a developer, or or a BI or a data engineer, and it makes you extremely productive because it's a single flat structure in terms of how you use the services. I'm going to go into security aspects of it because that's one of the key aspects. I would say from the security is a couple of key things. On data protection, every single solution in Azure has got it's got a very strong data protection capabilities. Data in transit, usually it's a HTTPS or a TLS 1.2. I think I mentioned this on my storage session. By default, SHA 256 data is encrypted at rest, and thus you cannot switch off the encryption. Very simple. Encryption at the storage level cannot be switched off. And because these services are built on that, it automatically gets the advantage of that the security aspects are natively into the solution itself. And also data discovery and classification. Why this is important? So GDPR and other compliances metrics have certain policies and governance to be enforced. Okay, so we're not talking at a data storage level. We're talking at a data level. You have a capability of classifying, for example, these type of data in GDPR. There are certain clauses on PII data. Okay, so you can enforce some of the classification on the data itself, and that will help you make your products and solutions and your processes compliant from the given security compliance things. And we also have three key features, which is very well known. I think from an access control list, or we call them ACLs, row level security, column level security, as well as dynamic data masking. See, dynamic data masking is a very key feature when you're working with PII. So, for example, if you're running a day, let's say you are a company which are running marketing campaigns for finance professionals. I'm just throwing an example. So in that case, you really don't want to showcase, say, let's say last name as well as zip code of the particular potential, targets of recipients. In that case, you cannot really constantly, and let's say somebody is able to find those fields automatically. What we can do is we can put dynamic data masking, which will remove or change these PI information to something else, which means your data is secure. And it goes on, right? The SQL, Azure is integrated with it, and network security, because these services get deployed in a virtual network. You can apply the VNet security policies like NSGs, and we also have firewalls which baked into it, and also because these are residing in its own virtual network. If you remember the class we had on the virtual network, in virtual network, you can have a private IP addresses, which according to your own allocation, like 10 dot and 170 dot 190 dot, because these servers resides in its own private network. You can basically whitelist and restrict access to these networks. The last one is Azure Security Center, which we're going to talk about in the coming weeks. Azure Security Center is a fabric level tool where it protects, it gives you additional number of security capabilities, including advanced threat protection, vulnerability assessment. Basically, it will find out, it will has a own machine learning model. It will look for how vulnerable the systems are. And the last one is auditing, right? So every single access is audited constantly. And also, one other key point I want to mention is the data format we use, Parquet format. So I think Parquet is one of the widely used data format in the big data world. So from a data storage into the Synapse, and the Parquet format is the format that we use for data ingestion as well as working with data directly. And it's got a lot of advantages of it. And we also have different types of database tables, column storage, table partition, non-cluster indexes, hash distribution. Depending on the use case, you can choose what is best relevant to your use case. And we also have both views and materialized views. And the last one I want to mention is partners. So Microsoft strategy has always been working with partners. We work with Talent, Informatica, Attunity, Databricks, and tons of partners. Why partner ecosystem is important? Because these partners are able to build solutions on top of our Synapse Analytics to make the platform much more richer. And on top of that, enterprises have a lot of investments on partner network. They don't want to go away from it, so it's going to be used by them as well significantly. So I know a lot of customers use Informatica and Databricks, and they really don't want to lose all the investment they made. So because our solution works with so many partners natively, it also helps the customers to take advantage of the investment they made, and then that way it's best of the both worlds, right? So that's something to think about. This is also a heavily partner invested product. So it also helps you to grow your existing solutions and also add new capabilities into it. So that brings the end for the Azure Synapse Analytics. I quickly run through the Cosmos DB. I think if you have any questions, pop that into the Teams channel. I will respond it after the class, or if I could, even now. So, Kadir, you wanted 5 minutes of time, right? At 11-ish, 11 to 10-ish. Do you want to take over? You want to share something?
Sure. I'll just 2 minutes.
Yep.
Can I take your screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. Can everyone see the screen, please?
Yeah.
Rika, can you see my screen?
Yes, the chat window.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let me. Minute. Okay, good. Perfect. So, team, one of the thought process, Krishna, myself, and all the volunteers in Testoper community, started thinking, how can we actually transform you guys just from the thinking point of view, learning from us to creating something, right? So this is the fundamental thing that we started thinking, and we kind of plan to start a hackathon program. So if you actually see in our Testoper community, there's a Testoper hackathon channel, and in the channel there is a hackathon survey, right? So what I wanted you guys to do is read through them. So some of you may not know what hackathon is. Doesn't matter, right? But just read through them. I don't want to explain it today and steal the thunder, right? I know that Krishna has some other things to do. So read through this and then try to, kind of answer, and then we will take it up from there. As an example, I have received so far close to 6 responses, right? That's a good start. I mean, and a lot of people have not done the hackathon before, right? And I see this couple of people have done hackathon before. This is really good, right? And they have done it as an hacker. So I like to really focus on the people who are already attending the sessions today, both today, that is intelligent automation session, and as well as the test automation session. And whoever is interested, I would be initiating a conversation with you guys on the Testoper hackathon chat, and do a small pilot with you guys, right? A small hackathon, unofficial hackathon that I wanted to do with you, and then you can use that also into an official hackathon, right? Because you're already a active participant of the community. So here, basically, long story short, hackathon is all about enabling you to create something, right? And create something that could be either useful for other community members, or that could be useful for you as a person to start a company. It could be anything, right? But the idea here is we wanted to really transform you from just learning to a creator, right? From a learner to a creator. That's the idea. So the request I have is, whoever is here today, after the session, I hope everyone have the Microsoft Teams account. Go to the hackathon channel, click the hackathon survey, and then just read through them, what hackathon is, how we are going to do this, right, at a very high level, and then provide what you wanted to do. Then I will communicate with you in the chat of this hackathon, and we'll take it forward from there. Right? So that's my announcement, Krishna. Please take time to go and show your interest on this. It will really transform your way of thinking, and we are very keen in doing this, because this is something that is, we strongly believe, is required for you to become a creative talent and workforce of the future. So the companies can come and grab you, or you build your own company. It doesn't really matter, right? But this skill is something that we really wanted to develop you guys. The effort is to develop the skill in you guys. Okay, so I'll stop my sharing, Krishna, to you.
Okay. Give me a second. I will take over. Thanks very much for this one, Kader. So this also gives opportunity to test their skills in the real world, right? So there are definitely some questions on the chat window. Let me finish the thoughts because and then I'll collectively answer it. But thanks very much for the positive feedback. Let me. The screens are visible, right, team?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's visible.
You see the okay, fine. Okay, so maybe I might take 5-10 minutes extra today to so that I finish the topic today, and next week I start something more on the next sessions as I promised. So I think we spoke about a little bit about the Cosmos DB previously. There are a couple of key takeaways that I really want everybody to be aware of. Okay, if you take about Cosmos DB, it's one key takeaway. It's a fully managed NoSQL database service. Okay, um, and also it has got one key factor is it's got a single digit latency, which is when you're building applications which are distributed across globally, you that single the latency may plays a major role in terms of your application performance and things like that. I'm going to share a white paper after this in the watch out for the test hopper. If you take Microsoft Teams, the backend that uses Microsoft Teams is basically is built on Cosmos DB. I'm going to share you some statistics. The statistics are basically it goes into billions of minutes of chat time and call time. I might be a bit off here and there, but it's massive, huge volume. So a lot of when you're building mission critical applications of that nature, you need that. And it also supports couple of key things, right? Multiple APIs, which means you can use graph type APIs, you can use schema agnostic service APIs, and also we provide APIs like MongoDB and Cassandra. So what we have done is we work with these open source companies. When they publish their APIs, we take that APIs and then build and then use the APIs so that from a developer point of view, if you're using an existing MongoDB or Cosmos DB, so if MongoDB or a Cassandra type or there is tons of other services, you don't have to change your code as long as it of certain version type. For example, Mongo, we support certain version types of the APIs. You don't have to change your code. You can still use the existing same code, but the backend can be residing in Cosmos DB. A lot of customers do that. Why they want to do that? Couple of reasons, right? Technically speaking, MongoDB and Cosmos, like Cassandra, have their own fantastic functionality. But there might be times where when you want to scale out or when you have, there still comes with that infrastructure component. And that infrastructure component at times makes your growth challenging. And also we have a challenge called currency issues. What we mean by currency issues, large enterprises, you know that there's an upgrade cycle, and there is a patch cycle, and there is also fix cycles, which means you have to take the application down and fix and patch them when the new version comes, when you have to look at the contractual things and go for it. A lot of enterprises don't want to deal with that sort of thing. And also every time a major infrastructure update happens every 3 years or 5 years, it takes whole much of time and effort. The customers are looking to actually moving away from it. That's why the Cosmos DB is massively important. And one key feature we enabled is the choice of consistency. If you look at there is a whole consistency model which I will also share that with you. It's called the CAP theorem. So depending on your, it's called consistency, availability, and performance. And the formula goes: you cannot have all three. You need to make a compromise on one of these ones. But in the way our design system is depending on your level of application. For example, if you have an application which is very critical, it has to have like for example building a transaction application, then consistency is extremely important. Then you have to choose the consistency model onto this one. So long story short, depending, it doesn't matter what type of scenario you have, Cosmos DB can adapt to your business needs and go from it. And absolutely one key factor is we have elastic scaling baked into the platform. So depending on your workload growth, the scale factor can happen automatically without you doing anything about it. Hopefully my slide will go. So a couple of key points on the right-hand side. Every single Azure product we always talk about has got native Active Directory integration enabled into it. Why that is important? It's because of two key factors. From an identity perspective, there's a single source of truth, which is Azure AD. Every single access to any service has to come through the identity source. The second one is in Azure, we have a concept called role-based access control. What we mean by role-based access control is you as a user will get only the appropriate privileges that are necessary to do your job. We can also call this as least privilege access model. Interchangeably people call least access model or whatever it is. So in short, if you're a developer, you will have restricted access. If you're administrator, you have higher access based on your role. You can dictate it. And we also built in capabilities for backups and point of time restore. So why these are important? Data do get deleted by mistakenly, or like I know some shape or form you need to have that. We have two features enabled. One is the backup as well as point in time restore. And availability zones is a very key factor. So Canada Central, which is Toronto, it's going to have AZs. You might wonder why we have regional pairs, which is Canada Central, Canada East, and we have AZs. Think about AZs are basically one mandate is these availability zones are within 40 kilometers of each other. Okay, which means technically speaking, we are looking at about 0.4 milliseconds. The closer the data center, the backbone is closer, which means you have higher availability of services. Cosmos DB also supports that. We also introduced Gremlin API. Gremlin is another type of data store. We use that as well, so it's available into that. And also we natively integrate with Spark as well as Jupyter Notebooks. Why Spark? Most of the data ingest to the Cosmos DB or processing usually happens through a Spark engine. If you take other databases, Cosmos like Cassandra and all, they do have a Spark engine come as baked into it for pushing data into it. And also Jupyter Notebooks. Jupyter Notebooks is for data type scientist type of workloads. We can use Jupyter Notebooks for it. Security, I think I briefly touched base on it. The entire platform is built with security model in mind. I think we spoke about role-based access control, and we also have the things I haven't spoken to you guys is compliance. Cosmos DB is adherent to multiple compliance models, and also other thing is authentication, authorization, CQRS. You can also enable network security. When you talk about network security, you can block certain IP addresses to communicating with the database. You can only whitelist, only your application can talk to the data store. It's basically, if you're building a 3-tier model, you're a web, your application and data, only your data layer should be able to talk to your only your application layer should talk to your data services. The web layer should not be even touching your data services. So that's possible by building the different NSGs around it. So we enable a network security policies across the service as well, and obviously monitoring, right? So monitoring is done through a couple of key products like Azure Security Center. It enables monitoring, and it also gives you multiple amount of telemetry, like who access the data store and audit controls. The whole lot of security features are baked into the platform itself. Again, key takeaway, I think I previously touched based on even on when talking about Synapse, all connections are HTTPS, SSL, or TLS 1.2. So it comes pre-built with VNet integration capabilities. It also builds in IP firewalls and also private and public endpoints. Private links. Think about private link and private endpoints. So think about what happens in these two private link and private endpoints are. So if you take about Cosmos DB, it's a PaaS service, which is it's a PaaS service of, technically speaking, they are available on the public domain, right? So you have HTTPS, you can access through a public endpoint. Some customers don't want to have that because of security reasons. What we have built is for customers that don't want to expose anything about your data services into a public domain. When I say expose, is not the data, just like the connection point itself. So private endpoints, treats or converts your PaaS service into a service as if it's only available and accessed through a network. How we do that is we have a concept called so private link. Private link basically what happens for the given service, it will build it will, when you instantiate service, you say I want a private link, it will create I would say a pointer into your virtual network. So that pointer can be only accessed from your virtual network and basically blocks everything out. So what advantage of that is, so all of a sudden your the PaaS database becomes like your private endpoint database from a security aspects of it. That is 100% compliant because the only private traffic is allowed into the data store. There's a whole engineering effort gone into it, but to all our data services today have a private link as well as the private endpoint enabled. I was speaking to you before about the firewalls. So in the way you configure that is you go to the Azure portal and then you select selected networks. So in your selected networks, you might be selecting, okay, these 3 networks in my Azure subscription are allowed to talk to the data store. It could be, one could be where you're running a data science workload, one network could be another application, and one network could be your reporting system, right? So depending on your use cases, you can restrict the traffic as you want to be. Additionally, we also spoke about VNets. We also the IP firewall routes also enables you to allow certain IP addresses, IP ranges, and also anytime somebody tries to access a service from other from network which doesn't have access, it also lets you capture denial logs. I think we spoke about the Azure AD integration. And also one other key point to mention is keys. Data access to Cosmos DB is you need to have a valid key for you to access the data store, and the keys are not exposed, and the keys can be stored in Azure Key Vault. So all your access to data store can access through the key vault mechanism, which means the keys is never exposed, but you also have an option of rotating the keys on demand. One key advantage of the service is able to have global replication. What do you mean by global replication? Let's say I'm just throwing an example. If you are a company which is selling products across the world, and you have a website, you have portals or websites across Europe, Asia, North America, and also Australia as an example, right? You want to publish your product catalog in multiple places. What you end up doing is you publish your catalog in one place, and you would configure replication for the Cosmos DB across the world, and automatically the data can be replicated across the world. Why I'm stressing this point out is because of the fact most of the time customers usually do primary and secondary region. In Canada, Canadian customers would do Canada Central, Canada East, but that's not useful on global replication. So Cosmos DB has additional features. One more feature is basically ability to replicate your data anywhere you want within one of the Azure data centers. And we also talk about the local replication. I think the reason is depending on your what replication also gets you one additional thing. Your availability increases significantly. The more replication you have, your availability increase, your number of nines increases significantly as well. Monitoring attacks, constantly we run multiple threat prevention prevention, and it also have audit logs. Azure monitoring also gives you all access, who's accessing it, what they're doing, and full audits on history. And you also have you can also ask Microsoft any specific custom logs that you want to capture. You can also configure that as well. Multiple telemetries. I think we spoke about the audit logs, diagnostics available, and also compliance. We spoke about the compliance. Basically, this compliance list is a bit old. If anybody wants to know about all the compliance and stuff like that, I'll send the link. It's called Microsoft Service Trust. Every single audits we do, you need to use a corporate account to log into the portal. So every time we do any audits, the information is available for customers to consume. Yeah, that brings the end to the Cosmos DB one. I quickly want to touch base on the tooling we have for migration. I think this slide should have been on the previous one, but I think I rearranged it a little bit. So we have multiple tool sets. One is the SQL Server Migration SSMA. We also have Migration Assist. We also have Experimentation Assist. I can give you a list of tools that we have available within the Azure ecosystem for customers to move the databases from anywhere they want within to Azure. So this is a small subset of it. We also introducing products like Azure Migrate. To do that, maybe we need a separate session for it. But at this point in time, for your understanding and learning, we do offer a multitude of tools and services for customers to migrate. I think we already 11:33. I just want to stop at this point in time. So I'm glad I'm able to finish this within the set time. But yeah, if any questions, feel free to ask, or if not, always post the questions on the chat window. And thank you very much for your time today. Yeah, Kadir, anything you want to add as a for today, or
no. Some questions asked in the chat. Did you?
No. I'm going to go to the chat now. So Ajit asked, one of the questions from Ajit is, for customers, the type of license has anything to do with scalability or availability? The licensing model, okay, let me paraphrase the question properly. So there's nothing, for certain types of workloads, if you have SQL Server, right, for example, you might be having only certain number of CPU, vCPU cores or licenses. Then if you want to add more nodes, if you want to have bigger nodes, then we might need to be, there might be implication on security. Availability might be, you might be having, again, you might have only a couple of, I would say, licenses. If you want to make your systems available across the other regions, you might have challenges. But if you use any of our Azure PaaS services, say managed instances or SQL databases or Postgres or MariaDB or MySQL or Cosmos, or I would say Redis cache, there's no licensing. Basically, these services customers pay they pay using pay-as-you-go model, which means you pay for what you use, or you have contractual models like reserved instances, like 1 year reserved instances or 3 year reserved instances. So depending on that, there's no cost for it. I think Sumit answered a question on role-based access control. Okay, Rajan, I will share with you about the CQRS the web security. I'll definitely share that in. I think there are not a lot of questions on this one, but as always, thank you very much for joining the session. Hopefully it is useful, and I'm looking forward to see you all on the future sessions as well. We have a lot of things planned. Thank you, Kadir and Saad, for hosting this, and thanks everyone for attending it. Thank you very much.
Krishna, we will find a way to increase the attendees, right? So I know that those who are interested are regularly attending, and thanks to them. Yep. I keep asking you also to bring in your friends and colleagues, right? So that's the next one. And then finally, Krishna, the new programs that you have, let's create a new entries in the Eventbrite to bring additional Delta people to join the sessions, right? Yep. So those were the key things that we need to focus on. And team, whoever is in the call, first of all, thanks for joining, but also we want you to take one step further to really help us grow the community as well, right? One thing is getting benefited, and second thing is helping also the community to benefit. And I kindly request you guys to see what you can do to bring more people to benefit from this. You have no clue, right? There are so many other things that happens in small courses. They charge $2,000, $1,000, and the people and the quality of the trainers that we have and the experience of the trainers that we have, the practical experience. Like, for example, Krishna has built, I don't want to name it, he's built a complete architecture system for big companies around the globe, right? So the people like him giving a session is like something that is not common everywhere to get it, even if you have to pay a hell of a lot of money, right? So use these things and try to help us to grow together as a team, because our growth is the end of the day. How many people we are helping is what is our growth, right? We don't make money out of this because it's a non-profit. And the last one is, like I mentioned, give it a thought on hackathon. We are starting to engage the people, and even we can start some of the projects offline. So let's discuss more on the hackathon, fill up the survey, and then we'll go from there. With that, let's close the call for today. Thank you very much, Krishna, and all participants. Looking forward to your great.
Thank you all. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Watch.
Thank you.
Gold.
Thank you.